Hello YouTube, welcome back. I'm bringing you another one of my fancy little drawings here. This is going to be the next prop that I'm going to be making for this year's display. I'm going to be making kind of like one of those pedestal style monuments, I guess you say, with the statue on the top. What I'm going to be trying to do is I'm going to try to see if I can get a hold of another one of the dolls that I used for this prop right here. What I like about it is the arms had a lot of like movement, articulation in them, so I was able to pose it really well. So I would like to try to use one of those again. So I'm going to be looking for one of those. If I can't find one of those, then I'll be just using one of my 3-foot skeletons. But my goal is for the main structure to be about 6 feet, 72 inches. And if I do find the doll, those were 72 inches tall. Sorry, not 72, 32 inches tall. So that should give me roughly about 104-inch overall height of the unit. So we're going to see how well that works out. I might have to make some adjustments. It might be a little shorter, it might be a little taller. Just depends on how everything works out with the material that I'll be using. So I hope you enjoy this video, and let's get started. All right, so these are pretty much the materials that I'm going to be using for this particular prop. I got a couple of these foam blocks and my 3/4 wall board. But before I start the actual fabrication of this, I want to kind of talk about some of the safety concerns that I have with building this particular prop. Because when you kind of looked at the drawing, you can see this thing is going to be over 8 feet tall by the time it's done, and it's going to be top heavy with having that statue at the top. So making sure this thing is structurally sound and safe is definitely going to be definitely a priority and a safety concern. The reason why I'm saying that is because this is going to be an outdoor display. So this thing's going to be subjected to Mother Nature's fury. We're going to have wind, rain, the sun beating on this thing. And it's going to be a walkthrough display. So I'm going to be having families walking past this thing, parents, kids, that kind of stuff. So even though I'm going to have this thing anchored to the ground with rebar or whatever I'm going to be using, I can't have this thing failing at a glue point and tipping over. And the reason I say that is if I were to say just take my wallboard right there and I were to say cut my 4 pieces and just glue my 4 pieces right to the top of this thing, even though this thing does look like a big block of foam, it's all those little teeny pieces like you see in any kind of packaging foam that you see in anything like your TV and all that kind of stuff. So if it's just glued to the surface and I get a good enough wind that's going to push on this, there's nothing that's going to keep all these little pieces from separating from itself and the whole thing toppling over. And the last thing I want is for it to topple over while somebody's standing next to it. So I had to really take a little bit of time to kind of really think about what's going to be the best course of action to really kind of make this thing as strong and as structurally sound as possible. So what my game plan is going to be, and I think this is going to make it very strong, is I'm going to measure over 1.5 inches from the edge of the foam. I'm going to essentially cut a trench that's going to be 1 inch wide by 1.5 inches deep. That's going to allow me to take my foam board, drop it down into this block 1.5 inches. So what that's going to do is whatever I use for my my glue, whether it be a caulking or expansion foam, it's going to cover 3 sides of the foam board and the 3 sides of the block here, which is almost going to be essentially turning it into like a solid piece. So it's almost going to be like one solid piece, very strong, very durable, less chance of any kind of movement right there. I'll be doing the same thing for the top piece too. This will be routed out just the same, so it sits down on top of it. The reason why is because I'm going to have the statue attached to that. So I really don't want this thing to, just be glued to the top and all of a sudden the weight of the statue and the whole thing just kind of tip over like this. But it is going to be a 3-step process because I really don't know what to cut this until I get this done first. So I'm going to go ahead and make my measurements, get this routed out, measure how big it is, cut those pieces, figure out my taper. Once I figure out my taper, I'll go ahead and set all the pieces in here. I'll figure out how big that top is, and that's what's going to tell me to cut this piece, and I'll get this piece cut. So what that's going to do, and then after I get all that stuff cut, then I'm going to loosely put it all together with no glue, see if I got to do any kind of adjustments, anything with the height and that kind of stuff. Then I can go ahead and get everything glued together and start finishing all the final stuff like the little trims and stuff like that. But step 1 is going to be to go ahead and get this cut and get this ready. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, I went ahead and I got everything glued together, minus the top piece here. This is all glued together. It's glued into the block here. I did a little small bevel detail here. The bevel detail is acting as 2 purposes. 1, decorative. 2, it's also adding a little more extra material here to help strengthen this bond here. Not only is this down inside the block, that inch and something, it also has this right here just to add extra structural to it. The next step is going to be, I left this extra tall because I know I wanted to be able to cut it down. I wanted to have the material there to cut down without having to add material to it. So I know right now I'm at 78.5 inches, so I know I'm plenty high enough. Obviously, I want to only be 72. I'm going to be using this 2-inch piece of foam at the top. That's going to be that extra detail that's going to be on the top here, where it has the extra little bevel details that are going to come down. So I know this is 2 inches, so I just got to measure from the floor up 70, cut this off at 70 inches, put this on, that'll give me my 72. And then I just got to add, the extra details to the bottom, like to my drawings, to kind of give it a little extra, little more beef to the base. And then I might add a detail here. I haven't quite decided yet, but I definitely are going to do like a bevel detail here, just to kind of give myself a nice little, almost cap kind of look to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start making some measurements and get ready to get that cut. Okay, I got the top cut down. While I was cutting it and I was sanding it, I went ahead and rounded off all the edges with some sandpaper, just give it a nice little rounded corner. I got my little piece right here cut. That's going to go up on top. And then what I'll be doing is I got these pieces right here. It's just a piece of that pink foam from another project that has a nice little 45 kind of deal on it. And what that's going to do is that's going to sit right up here like this, right against that piece. Obviously, they're all going to be 45 corners, but that's going to give me like that nice little, detail right here going up to the top platform that the statue will be on. I'm also going to do the same thing down here, not with this big of a piece, but another piece down here to kind of get my piece down here. So I have a little piece here, I have it here, and then when I do the bottoms, I will have one at the bottom, but I don't know if I'll put one on this one just yet. I'll have it at the bottom, there, and here, so it gives me all those nice little contours that they generally have. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cut with a 45-degree angle on them, pull this off, put it on the workbench, get it all glued together, and I'm going to glue everything together from that point. Finish the bottom. What I'm going to do for the statue is I'm going to cut a piece of 1/2-inch plywood that's going to fit up here the exact size. The statue is going to be fully attached to that piece of plywood, and on the bottom of the plywood there'll be a couple, pipes, dowels, I guess you could say, they're going to stick down. I'll have a couple holes up here, so I'll be able to just take it and just drop it in here. What that's going to allow me to do is that's going to allow me to have it up while being displayed, but then when I got to store it, I can actually pull that whole top section off, making it easier for storage. So I'm going to get ready to get started on the bottom next. Working on the tower a little bit more. I decided to make a wood base for it, something that can make sure it's a little sturdier. What my game plan is I'm going to drill a hole right here so I can actually run like a metal stake with a washer welded to it down inside of it, so it gives me a little more stability. And what I did with the tower, you see where I got that extra lip right there, and then what I did is I took just a piece right here, a bevel piece, and I have that set right there. So what it does is actually when you slide it into the base, that bevel piece actually touches the top of the wood here, essentially hiding the transition from one to the other, kind of making a nice little transition. So I'm going to show you what that looks like when it slides together. You see now that gives me a much sturdier base, makes it a little more of a bigger platform for it to sit on. Obviously, you saw the top already. So the next is going to be working on the statue for the top of it. I'm getting started on the RIP logo. That's going to go on the base right there on the front side. You see where I kind of have it traced out. What it's going to look like, it's going to have a border around it, and then it's going to be carved out in between each letter. So it'll be kind of like one piece that'll be glued on there, and I'll be using my router right there to router it out. I was able to get a hold of one of those dolls, good old Marketplace. You see, I went ahead and mounted it to a piece of 1/2-inch wood, like I was talking about doing. What I did for the dowel pins that I was talking about is, you can see I took a 1/4 nut, welded it to a washer, screwed it in place. So what I do is I have these rods right here that I made. And what they do is they just screw in from the bottom. So this way, when I want to display it, I can screw them in. Then when I'm storing it, I can actually take these out. So this way, I don't have these long, pins coming out the bottom of it, making it hard for me maybe to stack it on a shelf or something like that. I just went to a hobby store, picked up these little metal wings. They were part of something else. I cut them off. You can see I made essentially like a support armature kind of system for it. You see where it comes down to have a metal base here. I have the actual rod is here, but I added a secondary rod for just so it didn't sway too much this way. You see where I have it, it follows the shape of the back, so I have the bracket here, and that's what's actually anchored to her. And I have screws coming from the bottom up into the feet to lock the feet in place. Now what my plan is I'll be pulling the wings off, and after I dress it and get the dress on there, I'll be putting the wings on after the fact. And then once I go to do the painting and all that stuff, I soak the hair and style the hair, I'm going to have the hair come down, and the hair is going to essentially come down to the point where it's going to hide that metal bracket that goes across, so you don't see that portion of it. So the next step is going to be to essentially make the dress, have it come all the way down, to the base there. I'll probably maybe kind of have it go around the base a little bit to try to hide some of the wood as much as possible, so this way you don't really see the wood too much. You only maybe just see the front half of it, and then get ready to put it on top of the tower and start painting the tower and get this one completed up. Then putting some thought into the paint process for this one. I think what I'm going to do is I kind of liked, doing the whole bronze statue of the patina like I did on the angel prop that I just recently uploaded. I'm going to give that a shot again. I kind of want to do that again. So I'm going to do this one as essentially a concrete pillar base. So I'll paint it, throw my texture on there, make it look like stone. And then I'm going to do a bronze statue on the top with the patina, and then having the patina kind of run down, essentially the pillar and stuff like that. But I'm going to go a little bit different paint scheme with this one a little bit. Instead of doing the gray base like I normally do, I'm going to do more of a white base with a little bit of black mix into it. So it kind of like dulls it down a little bit, but still makes it kind of a lighter color, I guess you can say. So that's going to be the paint process I'm going to go with this one. So hopefully this one turns out looking pretty good. Now, I know in the videos you see how I always throw the mortar mix on there. The reason I do that is because I like to be able to have control over how much texture I put on these. Like, this one right here, you see it's just a fine, texture on it. It's not too heavy. It's not too aggressive. It's just a light, fine, almost concrete feel to it. Versus if I use something that's pre-mixed or I mix it myself, then you have no control over how much you put on there. This way I can actually, if I say I want a little more, I can always just add a little more. If I want a little more, I can always add a little more. So I can get the desired look that I want. Working with the angel this morning. Unfortunately, when you're working with something this small, it's really hard to try to find an outfit like this to fit it. So I had to ask my mom to give me a hand with this one. Normally I would just kind of just drape it and just kind of let everything kind of fold over and stuff like that. But, with this one going to be definitely viewed, all the way around, it's up in the air. You're going to see if it's just kind of hodgepodge together. And my mom's been sewing since before I was born. So she's really good at making outfits and things like this. So I asked her if she can help me with this one. So we just went and picked up some cheap pillowcases. So this way, she just had some fabric to use for it, and she was able to make the dress to fit it. I think it turned out great. The next thing I'm working on is styling it. Figure out how I want the dress to drape. Put a little kind of tie thing around it to kind of bind it in the middle there. The next thing is going to be figuring out the arms. Do I want the arms to be, down like you see them? Do I want to have them up a little bit? Do I want to have them up, look like they're reaching for the stars? Once I get that figured out, then I will fix the arms in place, and then I'll start the painting process where I'll be, making it all one neutral color, and then I will spray it with the bronze spray paint to make it look like a small bronze statue, and then I'll start the aging process, and then I'll marry the two pieces together and finish up the aging process and get this one finished up. But we're going to keep on moving forward with it. All right, the angel is ready for paint. what we ended up going with is just kind of having the arms up a little bit, kind of like in a open, welcoming kind of presence to it. We didn't really want our hands like reach for the stars or down by the waist. We kind of wanted something that looked a little more natural, kind of thing. We got the dress all pinned in place, tied. The hair in the back is going to be acting as two purposes. One, it just dresses up the back, gives you a nice thing in the back. Plus, it also kind of hides the bracket and where I cut the wings off the original piece and welded on there. So that's going to hide all that. Now, the reason I'm going this route with this instead of doing like pre-painting and all that kind of stuff, with this being going for like the bronze statue, it's got to be a smooth finish. And if I were to sit there and do the whole thing where you put texture on to make it look like stone, it's not going to look right. So I have to keep it smooth. So I'm just going to do like 3 layers of paint on it as you see it, so it keeps it non-textured essentially, and then I'll be able to do the bronze paint and then the aging process after that. But I'm getting ready to start painting it, so we'll see how this turns out. All right, got the angel in place. Overall, I don't think it looks too bad. The only problem is just too clean. Considering everything else I put in my cemetery, is definitely aged, dirty, grimy, covered in moss, green, that kind of stuff. This would just look way out of place if I just left it too clean looking like this. So it's going to get aged. So what my plan here is, I'm going to take the green and kind of the same thing I did with that angel right there, and obviously put it in specific places to try to make it look as natural as possible. I have a couple reference pictures I'm going to work off of to try to make sure it looks good. And if I don't like it, I can always just repaint the bronze on it again and start over. So it ain't going to be the end of the world if I get too much. I can always just start over. Not that I want to, but I can. And then what I'm going to do for the base, I'm going to start off with some very heavy diluted black. I'm going to put it along the lip here, or kind of like up here, and I'm going to let it run down. And I want it to just run down, drip on here, and splash off and that kind of stuff. And I'm going to do the same thing with the heavy diluted brown as well, where I'm going to have it up here and just let it run down. And so this way I get a little bit of the black and the brown, because the brown is going to simulate dirt and stuff like that. The black is going to show like just age. And then at the very, very base right here, I'll probably do like a green, because that's closest to the ground. So it's going to kind of have like that look of like splash up and that kind of thing. So I'm going to try to be careful so I don't have to start over again, but you never know. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, now the green that I'm using for the patina, all I did is I took that reference picture. I was on my phone. I just went to the paint shop. Just held those little paint cards up to it. I found one that was really close. I couldn't find one that was like dead on exact, but it's a little bright. But I think once it sits in the sun a little bit and fades a little bit, I think it's going to look just fine. I think I'm going to stop right there with the green. I mean, I might add a little more to the face, but I think for the moment I'm gonna leave it alone. So now I'm getting ready to start with the diluted black and browns, and see how that works out. All right, so next day I'm kind of looking at it, and I'm gonna redo it. I don't like it. When I started thinking about it, for the amount of I used to say patina that I put on the top, based on the bottom, it just doesn't feel like this has the same level of weathering that one has, based on possibly like a time frame or something like that. So I'm going to be redoing it. I went online, I kind of searched some pictures weathered, monuments and columns and things of that nature. And these are the ones I'm going to be working off of. So you can see there's a lot more black on it, not so much green. So I'm going to be putting a lot more black on there. Then I also kind of decided that the rest in peace thing, I'm going to turn that into a bronze plaque to match that. So I'll end up putting a little bit of patina down there. And I have another picture that I'm going to kind of use as a reference for that one. So you see where it has like the rust holes in it, or not rust holes, but like the rust coming off like the bolts that are holding it on. So I'm going to try to create rust streaks plus with the little patina painting it. And I'm just going to work on my blacks on that. So hopefully the second go around works out much better than the first go around. So here we go. Alright, weathering part 2 is done. I definitely made the bottom more of a black color, kind of like in those reference pictures. I definitely made sure the top was a little bit more darker. The center section's definitely darker. I put some browns in there, a little bit of greens. I think it definitely looks a lot more distressed, more aged than the first attempt. First attempt just kind of really didn't look like I did much to it, especially in the camera. I also did a little bit more with the angel. I went ahead and I sprayed some green on there and took a wet paper towel and then wringed it out above it to cause it to run. So you see where I got some nice runs going on with the green. I did it on the forehead area, a little on the wings, on the hands. I did a little bit down the dress. It's a little harder to see on the dress because, there's already quite a bit of green on that. And then, I did the plaque. You see, I kind of let the plaque have a little bit run down, here. And I have seen some pictures where sometimes the green kind of washes down on top of something that's below it. So since I kind of did that, not intentionally, but since it did it, I went ahead and just left it there. But I'm gonna go ahead and let this completely dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'll see how it looks, and hopefully this one's gonna be all completed. Yeah, you got it out here in the yard, let it dry all night. I actually like it more now because the black was able to lighten up a little bit as it dried. So you can actually see a lot more streaks and kind of water runoff areas, which I think definitely gives it a little bit more of a realistic look. Like I was saying, the green, I'm not too worried about the green being kind of bright because I have a feeling once this thing sits outside for about a week or so, that's going to dull down a little bit from the sun. So I'm not too worried about it. But I do really like the way the shading came out on this one. I like the way the patina came out on her up here. Overall, I actually really like this one. I have a feeling this one's going to stay in my collection for quite a while. Leave me a comment, tell me what you think. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.